Hey everyone, this is Eric Harlan, one of the co-founders of Ivy Experience, and really lucky to be here today with Amy Kopelman, who's the founder of Pathlitics. And I'm going to let her explain all about what that Pathlitics is in a second, but I just want to give some quick backstory, which was I was catching up with a former student who was telling me about his work because was working with Amy for a little bit. And he was describing what Pathletics is and their mission. And my team and I looked at each other and we said, wow, this is desperately, desperately needed more than ever. Um, Amy, I want you to explain what Pathletics is better from you than me. But then I can build off why we were so excited to talk with you and why we feel it's so important that families hear from you and know this is an option. Because while Pathletics isn't for every family, it is for an increasing number of families every single year. And, we've been around for 15 years and we've seen the need for Pathletics increase every year. And, would love to know what caused you to create it, what inspired it, and what it is. So, Amy, thanks for being here today.
Eric, thanks so much for having me and giving me this opportunity to be able to share a little bit more about Pathlitics. So, in terms of how this came about, just really quickly, my professional background is in product management. So, what that basically means is there are problems that are out there that people have, and they're looking for some kind of solution. And so, you meet with a lot of people and you figure out that solution for them. So, a couple of years ago, I started down this college search process with my son, and with an eye towards my daughter who has learning disabilities. And going through that process, I realized that it is really hard to get information about how different colleges or even other programs and pathways support students with learning differences. College counselors, they spend I think the research study shows that they have about 30 minutes annually with each student. And these searches for programs that support students with ADHD, learning differences, or on the autism spectrum or intellectual developmental disabilities, it just takes a long time. So they don't have that time to spend to students with students. And what's interesting too is that in a survey, basically showed that guidance counselors, only 19% of them feel comfortable working with students or with disabilities. They're not prepared, they don't have that information. So, aside from getting that information from guidance counselors, you're trying to get this information from other families. That's who you consult with, except unfortunately, there's a stigma around learning differences or disabilities. So, that information is not being shared. So, going through my whole product management experience, trying to find a way to be able to share that information for students to know what's out there, for families to know what's out there, and also be prepared for that next step, which is another key component of it.
So, how does Pathletics do that? What is the platform that you created, and how does it work to support families?
Yeah, so we have a number of different components. First and foremost, we have an extensive database. Goes through all levels of support from 1 through 4. So, 1 being you need to have extra time in a different testing environment, to 4, where you need a specialized college for you, and obviously the in betweens. And we have extensive detail about each of those so that it's all in one spot. And then you can also use filters to search on what's important to you because it is so individualized. Do you want to be close to home? Do you want a large school, a smaller school? What are you majoring in? So being able to play around with all of these filters is helpful. The next part of it is the student testimonials. So these are real college students who are providing these reviews, um, giving you the insight into what is actually happening on those college campuses. Is it what disability services is saying that they provide? But more than that, not just about the accommodations and the academics, but being able to get a feel for that overall experience. What is the social life like, extracurriculars? And it's amazing what you hear from students. They are incredibly honest, which I love to see. We have the ability to follow up with students. Everyone is masked on our platform, but you can connect with them safely. So if you had specific questions about a major or maybe working with disability services, you can ask that, as well as the opportunity to follow up with colleges to ask about their programs. And we have some webinars. So we try to pull in everything so that you can build that list. You can do further research, you can follow up, you can narrow it down as you're, deciding between the final colleges, and then you can prepare for that college experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. I know that I'm not just speaking for us at Ivy Experience, but for a lot of counselors I know across the country. Well, first and foremost, there's a lot of us who are, doing that independent counseling work, and we're seeing the increase, right? And, students with learning differences and disabilities every single year. And I know here, whether it's academic tutoring or SAT and ACT prep or working together on, the college applications and essays, we've had extensive experience with that. But there's a big difference between helping with the preparation process and then helping families and students identify where the next home should be. And this has been a huge source of difficulty. Um, and I know it's not just for us. I think what's happened, at least since I've gotten into this world, is that there's certain colleges that have a reputation, right? It's either a bigger university like an American or University of Arizona that has an outstanding program, or it's the university as a whole that has a reputation of being a great fit, like a Lynn University. Um, but if you search for this online, and I know I've done this many times over the years, I think you just come up with the same list over and over and over and over again. And it's the same group of schools that are the best, quote unquote, best fit. And then what happens is you go, well, these schools aren't the right fit for me. And then to your point, I think you go to every other college and university, and they all, first of all, it's really hard to research the websites and find what information's out there. And then it all blends together, right? There's a lot of promises. And, I say this with a high degree of sensitivity, but it gives me the same vibes as when I'm reading stuff about a school's like career advising, right? We have the support, but then if I'm the consumer, if I'm the parent or the student, I'm looking and going, well, how do I know if that's for real? How do I know that this is a quality and that this is what I need? So I'm wondering, Amy, how does Pathlitics gather, verify the information about, you know, these colleges' learning supports, but also how are you collecting and verifying the reviews from students as well? I mean, what are the checks and balances here? Because I think we all desperately need a comprehensive database like this. But how are you putting it together and making sure this is the best resource that it can be?
Yeah, lots of good points within there. And it does come down to the student reviews of understanding, is the university delivering on what they say they are? And when you're talking about how do you verify that, we've had situations where students at well-known universities have come to us and have, shared some not so great stories about how one in particular, they were denied their language waiver. And this is a student who grew up in a bilingual household, already had a job lined up following graduation. And the school, while they initially said that they would honor that, then went back on that. And he had to sit through various language courses, wasn't able to pass them, and really had to escalate it. So, you know, while that was a pretty big accusation, we went back and did some research to verify that that had been a shared experience with others as well. So when something is important and is said, we do verify that. And yeah, it's a lot of the reviews that we get are from participating high schools of ours, and it's their alumni who provides them. So they're able to share information that they know that their college advisor is seeing. So, you know, they're verified people, and the information they provide is honest.
And how often are you updating that information too? Because again, it seems like everything's ever evolving in this space, and the importance of the reviews seems paramount in this case. So, how are you staying so on top of this?
Yeah, we're constantly monitoring any kind of changes to program information at the college level. Colleges that are introducing new programs, we're overseeing that. We're also always reaching out to alumni to be able to share their reviews. Uh, One of the wonderful things is that as we were first testing this concept to make sure that alumni were going to provide reviews, we kept hearing and we continue to hear the feedback that they wish they had this information when they were researching colleges. So they are happy to share this information with us, both in terms of their college experience and even, any kind of job that they've been in since graduation.
Yeah. How have you noticed, anything evolving or changing in recent years, especially as this is becoming more and more in demand? Um, have you seen colleges enhance, enrich, expand their services that they're offering, or has it been pretty stagnant?
Yeah, so you had made reference to the percent of students that are now utilizing supports even since like 10 years ago. So we're now at 21% versus I think it was at 11% just 10 years ago. So they've had to greatly expand how many students they are supporting. Also, as you can imagine, with more technology, there are more tools that help students, right? Whereas beforehand, 10 years ago, you were using student note takers. Now there are a lot of AI note takers, note taking tools that are super helpful. But the other thing that we're starting to see is that some professors are getting a little nervous about their information being fed into AI models. So some professors and schools are reverting back to the student note takers where there's an opportunity for those note taking tools to not inform AI models. Also, more audiobooks and other materials, more peer tutoring so that they can handle more of that load to support students, and then also more or better access to mental health practitioners.
You mentioned earlier that really the impetus for this was your daughter and going through this process with her. I'm curious to know if then, in looking back, did you know what you were even looking for as you went through this? Did you know what level of support that she needed, or was that another level of difficulty in navigating the college search? Was you're saying to yourself, I know she needs support, but I don't even know what I need exactly.
Yeah, I think that it's been helpful to at least know the varying level of supports and programs that are out there. But it's interesting that with each, every 6 months or even year, there's such growth in students that it's really hard to anticipate what that's going to be. So helpful to see, she's now in 10th grade. Maybe there are some summer programs this year that we have in our database that could be helpful for her. Can I predict what she's going to need in a couple of years or what she's interested in? No, but I know that as you get to that junior year of building your list or senior year, you have a clearer picture. But we've also added a few tools to help parents with that. So on our pathlitics.com website, which is available to everybody, we have a quick, I think it's 6 question tool to assess what your student needs or what you need as a student. And questions are along the lines of, do you receive additional tutoring outside of school? How many hours? Do you wake yourself up in the morning? Are you organizing yourself, or does somebody else need to do that for you? Just to give you an idea as to some of the things that you may need to do in college, and whether that is with additional support or if that's on your own. Maybe a gap year program might make sense to help build in some of those executive function skills, or just to take a break from academics. Lots of different options. And then I would say also on our website, we go through clearly what levels are available, and what supportive programs are there. A lot of parents don't know that there are more comprehensive programs that are available for learning differences or students on the autism spectrum that might help for some organizational supports or social skills or just events, and intellectual developmental disability programs.
With Pathletics, obviously, what triggered this for me was just hearing, obviously, the students and parents are going on looking for different levels of support from the colleges. What are the different levels of support that Pathletics offers to students? So if I go on to pathletics.com and let's say I'm not exactly sure what I need, right, and what I'm looking for, what are the services provided to me as a student and a family?
In addition to being able to search on all different levels and kind of play around with those, we also offer specialized content that is helpful for this audience, including webinars where we bring in experts to talk a little bit more about the experience. And I would go back to the firsthand testimonials that are also super helpful. So, in addition to just helping students identify what the right program is for them or college setting is for them, those testimonials go through a lot of the self advocacy skills that are so important when you get to college. So, while adults in the room were saying, you need to be able to register with disability services on your own and be able to talk to professors, it's really students who are starting to see that from other students that it's important to do. And they can assess if they feel comfortable, if they feel ready to be able to take that on, or maybe they need a little bit more coaching in that area or more time.
I know that we have a few more minutes left together, but I do have two more questions for you, Amy. One that comes to mind for me is how our team here has really seen a certain trend toward a certain type of school in the past few years. I think accelerated, like so many other things, by the pandemic. Um, but this shift toward bigger universities and away from liberal arts colleges. And part of it's the weather. I think a lot of it is the school spirit, right? That's what we've seen. And my feeling, Amy, is that whether students have learning differences or learning disability or not, it's an interesting trend to watch, right? Because colleges and universities at their core, to me, I know this might sound crazy, should be about education first, right? Um, and it's interesting because I think there's so many of us in the universe who would really benefit from more personal, intimate relationships with professors and smaller class sizes and stronger support systems in that smaller environment. But we're seeing a huge shift away from that. So I'm wondering if, on your platform through Pathletics, are you seeing that same shift towards that type of school? If no, I'm curious where you're seeing the trends. But at the same time, Amy, if yes, and you are seeing the same trend, how do you think these bigger schools are doing with supporting students with learning differences and disabilities?
I think we will continue to see that push towards the most selective schools and, yes, towards the large state schools in the South. Um, I think that it is such an individualized experience, right? Some large public universities do a fabulous job at delivering supports and they have those additional programs, whereas others don't. And it really depends on and falls into the students' realm of being able to advocate for themselves. And a lot of times, students may not have those skills, and it's harder to find your way at a larger university. So it really is individualized for the student that you're working with, in addition to their needs and what each individual university or college provides. So that's where we're hoping to be able to help people because they can do that research of seeing one, what does that university offer? But even more so, what are other students' experiences there? Are they getting the their questions answered? Are they having to register for a separate testing environment 3 weeks prior, or is it 2 days prior? All of these things make a big impact on how successful they'll be able to be.
Well, now I'm really curious. Are there any schools that have really stood out and impressed you? I won't ask it the other way. Don't worry. I don't won't put you on the spot that way. But anecdotally, are there any schools that as you were compiling reviews and data where you were like, wow, that surprised me. They have some exceptional stuff there. And I'm curious what you're looking for that does make you excited and go, this stands out.
Yeah, I'm not going to name specific schools, but I would say that there are a number of schools that are embracing being able to support neurodivergent students, where they know that it has a huge impact to graduation rates. And they know that everybody learns differently in some way, and they want to be able to meet the needs of those students. So that's where I say, like, kudos to you for building new programs, testing new things out, because they see the importance.
I have a lot of seniors, and we already are working with juniors, in the next couple weeks who, are have college and campus visits booked or are planning that. And it's a big investment of time and money and energy to go visit any of these campuses. And I think it's crucial that students get the most out of it. So with students who are neurodivergent or have learning differences and disabilities, students are always calling us and saying, what questions should I ask while I'm on campus? So, Amy, just going to pass it on to you. What questions are good for students that be asking, and where should they be going on campus when they book a visit? Aside from the standard info session and tour, what are the kinds of names of offices or places they should be reaching out to? So they're not just asking the right questions, but to the right people.
Yeah, and absolutely. Campus tours, visits, it can be expensive. So I would say before you even go, consult all the resources that you can beforehand, in addition to like look at Pathlitics and see what other students have said and reach out to them. But you do want to try to meet with disability services there, and they all have different names. We have the names in our database and the direct contact for the website as well. I would try to meet with them. Not all of them are able to do so. They don't all have the capacity. But when you're there, take a look. Is the Disability Services Office in a basement on the opposite side of campus that's hard to get to, or is it right in the middle of campus? How many people are working there? What is the overall mood when you go into that office? What does that feel like? Do you have to re-register for accommodations each and every quarter or semester? That can take a lot of work for students. How have they supported other students who have similar profiles to you? So all of those questions definitely can, be a big factor in your experience. And I think overall, you just know what it feels like to be in that room. Do you feel supported? Do you feel that somebody's going to answer your questions, or is that not the vibe you're getting?
Yeah. Well, Amy, I really appreciate your expertise and your time. If I am a student or family listening to this and I am listening and saying, wow, I need to learn more, what's my next step?
Yeah, you can find more information if you go to pathlitics.com. That's pathlit, L-I-T-I-C-S.com. I'll say that one more time. Pathlitics, Pathlitics.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out and for an email, info@pathlitics.com. But thank you so much for having me, Eric. It's great to be able to talk about this.
Of course, Amy, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Take care.